this tree is a goner. I killed it. I had the opportunity to get this yew tree. I had this opportunity to get this Chinese juniper, and it's an Itoigawa variety. And it is from somebody who is quitting the hobby. She's been doing it for decades and she was tired of watering it, didn't want to take care of it anymore, and decided I'm going to get rid of this tree. It is a very, very nice trunk. Look at that. It's a very big old cascade. Oh, don't pour the water over myself. But it has seen much better times. So it was a good price. It has not had a lot of maintenance recently. The pot doesn't drain anymore. You can just pour the water in and it will just stay there and take minutes to percolate into the pot. So that means that the pot has been dry over summer and you can see the results directly in the canopy. Small branches have started to die off. It's not grown all that much. And over the last 2 days I've been putting water on the pot every single time I had a chance to allow it to percolate in. Now, one of the things you can do to solve this problem is of course to repot. But we're now in fall and I'm not very happy about repotting the tree. So what I've just done, I've taken this chopstick and I've just hit it with a hammer to get it to move into the pot. Now what I'm now going to do is I'm going to fertilize it heavily, and over the next week or two I'm going to find a pot that's a little bit taller, a bit wider, and I'm just going to take the tree out of this pot, put it in a new pot and fill it up with organic substrate so that the core of this root ball gets nice and moist. The tree gets the opportunity to take up some nutrients over winter, recover, and then in springtime, hopefully I can repot this properly. Do the root work, spread it out, put some fresh substrate in and get this back to health. Meanwhile, I'm going to remove all these dead pieces of it. I'm going to remove all bark from the trunk. Once that is all done, hopefully by spring I'll feel confident enough that this tree is healthy again. I'm going to wire the pads out anew, pushing all the foliage down and out, allowing lots of sunlight to come on the inside and hopefully get lots and lots of back budding. But so far, look at that, whole branches have died off over this summer because of a lack of water. So if you see the tips of your junipers browning off, individual branchlets dying off, and the growth is not all that well, then wonder, is your pot draining? I'm going to just leave this alone for the next couple of months, except for moving it into a new pot, watering it well, fertilizing. And then the next time you see me in this video will be in a few weeks when I'm repotting it, or even when I'm wiring it. You can see distinct greening up of the foliage, which is a good sign. However, here there is an area of foliage that is slowly getting browner and browner, and upon closer inspection there is a wire here on the inside that's been left in that might actually be strangulating this branch. So let's see whether we can get this out. I realize this is pretty much impossible to see. I think I saw here a bit of wire sticking out, or not. No, that's not wire, that's an old branch. Carefully lift it out of the groove to not slide off the bark. So always follow the shape of the wire and the groove. Really lift it up. And that's it. I can tell there's quite a bit of damage to the bark. Let's see how this recovers over winter, or whether these branches are actually completely going to die off. They are really weak already, so they might already be dead. But who knows, maybe this helps. Yep, that was to be expected. massive ball of roots. Just raking it a little bit so the roots are triggered to grow into new substrate, facilitating a repot later next year. Now just going to plant it up again for winter in a tall plastic container, but this will help in spring for the roots to colonize the pot. I don't do a full repot now because we are really at the end of summer. It's middle of October. Things are really going to go to sleep now. So just a somewhat bigger container with substrate. Scratch the root ball a little bit. Not in the hope that it's going to grow all that much over winter. But in early spring it will grow. Make sure that I don't plant this up too high. It needs to be quite deep. Now, after analyzing this tree a little bit, what I've realized is there's 3 main branches here in the top. Now, let's turn this around so you can also see what I'm talking about. The lowest branch, the middle branch, and the top branch. The lowest branch covers this whole section of the tree. Then there's a middle branch going here that only covers these branches. And then there's the top that basically covers everything that is here. So this one branch here, that covers only these few tufts of green, is actually just creating a very thick, full canopy. You can tell here, this is a very old branch. Nice old bark, twisted and turned, so I don't want to just cut it off. In fact, I'm going to try and air layer this off over the course of the year. The foliage is still not all that happy. It is late winter, maybe it will recover. I am going to put a little bit of an air layer start here. I'm not going to cut the bark, I'm just going to put a wire on very tightly, and then I'll put a little bit of substrate around it to keep it moist, to see whether I can trigger roots to grow on this part over spring. Now I'm just using a piece of copper wire that I put around at the place where I want roots to form, and I'm going to pull this really tight so it bites into the bark. Once it has bitten into the bark, sap flow is disrupted, which in theory, and often in practice, encourages the tree to look for alternatives. At that point, if it is moist just around the area that you've just squeezed tight, roots can form, hopefully enough, so that I can separate it later this year or in fall. Now I'm using coconut fiber cloth soaked in water, because there's not a lot of space here to really make a baggie or a pot with substrate, and in the end it is about keeping it moist. That's no good. Oh, I think I killed it. So this is a dilemma for me now. This tree is now turning completely brown. There are some areas here where it looks like it started to grow this spring, but because it is not turning back into the vibrant green, it is not coming back. There is something really wrong with this tree, and I don't know what it is. So I suspect it is the root ball. I think something went wrong when I repotted it in this pot. Let me pull it out and see whether there's anything happening to the root ball. Remember, I did not work on the roots except for just teasing it open a little bit. It should have just picked up and started growing this spring, but this color in springtime, it is now the middle of April, is not good. Some areas have a little bit of green, but I don't think this is going to pull through unless I do something drastic. I'm going to check whether there's any living parts in the root ball. weed out of here. There's nothing really happening here with the root ball. So the substrate that I've added on top, this is actually the filling from last summer. And you see that not a single root has started to grow in here. And in fact, if you look at the root ball, I don't see any living roots. These roots, none of them is really doing anything at the moment. They all seem to be dead. This is really a bad sign. Let me take a root hook and start opening up this root ball a little bit more and see whether there's any living roots anywhere on the inside. There really is not much left here. These roots, they're all dead, decaying, rotting. It shows again, I really should have just done the root work last fall rather than leaving it in this for the whole winter. That was a big mistake on my side. Because last summer, when I got the tree, the foliage at least was living. Now there is a little bit of green still in the foliage. There might be a slight chance that this pulls through. But let me continue cleaning this out. Well, I've got my verdict. These brown roots that you see are actually not living roots. They are all roots where the bark just slips off as soon as you touch the roots. And also, if I now turn it a little bit, here I've started to peel at the bark and I can peel all the way up to the wood itself. There's no living cambium left. This tree is just, yeah, sprouting a little bit on the water that was still stored in it. But overall, this tree is a goner. I killed it. Or I killed it by inaction. I really should have, in fall, done something about the root ball. Even though I knew it was too compact to be viable, I was gentle. And then the roots died. Maybe the roots were already dying, right, when I got the tree. I already said it was weak last year, but this week I did not expect. But that is not the end of life for this one. Let's make this a resurrection bonsai. Let's make it a tanuki. Anyway, this is a thing that happens. It happens to all of us at some point. This was Jelle, growing bonsai with the tree that I killed.